You think you know the secrets hidden within the quiet shelves of a library? Think again. What if the very foundations of that hallowed hall were built on screams, on a tragedy so profound the dead refuse to rest? Imagine discovering an ancient, forbidden book that doesn't just reveal words, but tears a hole between worlds. This isn't just about dusty tomes. This is a story about a sacred ground turned sinister, a curse that hungers for new souls, new followers. Are you ready to turn the page? Because once you do, the screams might never stop. The silence of the university library at 2:17 a.m. was a living thing, heavy and cold. It wrapped around me like a shroud, broken only by the distant hum of servers and the frantic click of my own wristwatch. Finals week. My name is Liam Thorne, and I was drowning in textbooks, a solitary figure among towering stacks, fueled by lukewarm coffee and desperation. History wasn't just a subject. It was a weight, a constant pressure to perform, especially after the academic probation that nearly ended my scholarship. Tonight was supposed to be like any other. Predictable, grueling, the kind of night where nothing unexpected ever truly happens. Until it did. I was deep in the restricted archives, a section few students dared to venture into. It smelled of old paper, dust, and something else. A faint, acrid scent, like burnt wood and metallic decay. I was searching for obscure references for my thesis, pushed by a sudden, inexplicable urge to explore the library's oldest, most neglected corners. My fingers, numb from typing, brushed against a shelf marked Local History Church Records. It was a shelf I'd never noticed, hidden behind a rolling ladder, partially obscured by shadows. My eyes fell on it. A book, unlike any other. It wasn't merely old, it was ancient. Bound in thick, dark leather that felt almost like dried skin with no title on its spine. The clasps were rusted iron, intricately carved with symbols that seemed to writhe in the dim light. I reached for it, a prickle of unease crawling up my arm. The air around it felt strangely colder, despite the stuffy warmth of the archives. As my fingers touched the leather, a faint, almost imperceptible hum resonated from the book itself, vibrating through my fingertips. My breath hitched. I pulled my hand back, startled. Just nerves, I told myself, a nervous laugh catching in my throat. Sleep deprivation. But a cold dread was already seeping into my chest, a physical chill that had nothing to do with the library's faulty heating. It felt like something had stirred, not on the shelf, but within the book. I pulled it out. It was heavier than it looked, solid, inert. Yet, as I held it, a faint whisper, like dry leaves skittering across pavement, drifted from its pages. Follow me. My stomach clenched. Hello? I murmured, my voice sounding strained in the oppressive silence. Nothing, just the hum. I carried it to a secluded study carrel, its faint green desk lamp casting a weak circle of light. I placed the book down. The light above flickered violently, then dimmed. I forced myself to unlatch the rusted clasps. They groaned, a sound like old bones creaking. The book fell open to a random page. The script wasn't Latin or Greek. It was a swirling, ancient language, illuminated with disturbing, grotesque illustrations of figures with empty eyes and gaping mouths. Then a sudden, sharp click echoed from deeper within the archives, like a heavy vault door closing. It was followed by a faint, almost imperceptible sound beneath the library's usual hums. A child's lullaby. Faint, distorted, but unmistakably ring around the rosy. My stomach clenched, bile rising in my throat. My great-grandmother used to sing that to me every night before bed. It was our song. How could this place, this book, know that? cold dread seeped into my chest, a physical chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. It felt like something was touching me, invisible fingers trailing down my spine. I snapped the book shut, its heavy covers slamming with a thud that echoed too long. The child's lullaby grew a fraction louder, more distinct, as if it was coming from inside the carrel. My own reflection in the darkened window of the library showed fleeting glimpses of what shouldn't be there. Faces pale and distorted, pressed against the glass, gone when I blinked. They were vague, just flashes, but I knew they were there. I knew they were watching. This wasn't just a strange book, it was an impossible anomaly, a presence from a place unseen, and I felt it targeting me. The lullaby seemed to hum in the very structure of the building, a silent scream, and I knew with chilling certainty that this was just the beginning. The metallic tang of fear was overwhelming. I was trapped, not just in the archives, but in a nightmare that had just become terrifyingly real. The book pulsed faintly on the table, its dark leather seeming to breathe. A faint, acrid scent of sulfur now mingled with the burnt wood, stinging my nostrils. Now I'll deepen the fear, just as it deepened for me. The library, once a bastion of quiet learning, quickly transformed into a cold, echoing tomb. Every distant clang of a pipe, every gentle rustle of turning pages from elsewhere seemed amplified, distorted, swallowed by the immense, oppressive silence that emanated from the ancient book, now clutched in my trembling hands. That silence was heavy, suffocating, punctuated only by that faint, acrid scent of burnt wood and metallic decay that now seemed to cling to my clothes, a constant, maddening presence. My sanctuary, the place where I sought answers, felt like a vast, empty stage for something truly sinister. I could almost feel its dark secrets breathing around us, secrets buried beneath the very foundation of this academic temple. I tried to fight it, to return the book, to forget what I'd seen. But the urge was relentless, a gnawing curiosity that pulled me back to its pages. Each time the script seemed to shift, to become subtly clearer, revealing glimpses of horrifying rituals and desperate prayers. The cold spots intensified, radiating from the book like an unseen current. My sleep suffered. Deep, heavy exhaustion would hit me, but the moment I closed my eyes, my mind raced, haunted by the memory of the unblinking faces in the carrel window. My past, a childhood marked by a profound sense of responsibility for my younger brother's illness, a period where I felt utterly powerless, began to feel unsettlingly connected. I'd spent years seeking answers, control. Now this book offered a glimpse into forbidden knowledge, a chance to understand power beyond my comprehension. Was my mind breaking down from the pressure of my thesis? Or was something truly infecting me, pushing me towards a horrifying revelation? I felt my isolation grow, my paranoia bloom. My roommate, Ben, just thought I was stressing over finals, leaving me a passive-aggressive note about my late-night ramblings. My calls to my only family, my distant aunt, were always met with skepticism, or the line would mysteriously cut out. I was on my own. The manifestations in my waking life grew more brazen, more impossible. My digital clock on my laptop, usually perfect, kept skipping. Not just seconds, but minutes, always landing on 2:17 a.m., the exact time I found the book. It was like a cruel joke, a taunt from something playing with time itself. Whispers on the edge of hearing, too faint to form words, yet somehow I knew they were my name. Liam? A raspy voice seemed to hiss from the dusty stacks when I thought about running, abandoning my research. My coffee, once a lifeline, now tasted faintly of ash and char. The motif of fire and ash became pervasive. I'd find faint scorch marks on book pages, though I'd never seen them before. The scent of wood smoke, old and acrid, would fill the air, only to vanish instantly. It was a dark, constant reminder, a symbol of dread. I found an old, brittle newspaper clipping tucked inside the book's binding, its edges singed. It was yellowed, stained with what looked like ash. The headline screamed, "Tragic Fire Claims St. Jude's Chapel All Lost." The article detailed a devastating fire from the late 1800s that had completely destroyed St. Jude's Church on the very site where the university library now stood. The bodies of the congregation were never fully recovered, assumed buried beneath the rubble. But a tiny handwritten note on the margin, almost invisible, read, "Not fire. Confinement. The ritual went wrong." The tension built slowly. Normal life twisted into something profoundly off or unnatural. The air in the archives grew perceptibly colder when I was alone, especially near the local history shelf. My own reflection in the darkened glass of the library's large windows started to show fleeting glimpses of what shouldn't be there. Faces, pale and distorted, pressed against the glass, gone when I blinked. They were vague, just flashes, but I knew they were there. I knew they were watching. The rhythmic ticking from inside the walls behind the main reading room resumed, always when I was alone, always closer to me, like something scratching to get out. This wasn't just a haunted library, it was psychological terror. The feeling of being watched, hunted, by an unseen force, connected to that phantom fire, growing stronger with every passing minute. I felt like a rat in a maze, and the walls were closing in. I could almost feel the presence of the lost, a deep, silent hum from within the book itself. It was waiting, and I knew, with a horrifying certainty, that it was waiting for me. My isolation was complete, and the line between sanity and madness began to blur irrevocably. As I stared at the book, its pages seemed to writhe, and a faint, sickly glow emanated from the grotesque illustrations, painting the dusty carol in a haunting green light. A faint, almost imperceptible scratching sound began to emanate from beneath the floorboards of the carol, directly below my feet, growing louder. This was the breaking point. Reality shattered. The book, previously a mere object of dread, now transformed into a terrifying portal. The humming, the low resonant frequency I'd only felt, now vibrated through the very air, shaking the heavy bookshelves. The silence from the entities was deafening now, not just an absence of sound, but a heavy, pressing void that filled my ears, pushing against my eardrums. And then, the malevolent force, tied to St. Jude's fire and its hidden crime, broke through violently. This wasn't a mere haunting anymore. It was an active, malicious entity that directly impacted me and threatened to consume my reality. The carrel flickered. Not just the lamp, but the very fabric of the library. The bookshelves warped. The rows of books seemed to melt and flow. For a split second, my modern study space twisted into a charred, smoke-filled chamber, embers still glowing, the scent of burning wood acrid in my nostrils. The pervasive coldness intensified, making my teeth chatter uncontrollably. Then a chilling voice, not human, but a chorus of distorted whispers, like 1,000 anguished voices talking at once, reverberated from within the book. They overlapped, a cacophony of agony and accusation, then coalesced into a single guttural roar, a man's voice raw with fury. "You burned us." It used my full name, not in a whisper, but a guttural scream that seemed to tear through the very air. "Liam Thorne, You burned us. I stumbled back, my legs giving out, collapsing onto the freezing floor. No, I gasped, the word catching in my throat. No, I didn't. My mind began to crack. The line between real and unreal blurred to the point of breaking. I questioned my sanity, my memories, and even my identity. Had I done something? What was he talking about? The newspaper clipping, the "not an accident" note, the blank spot in my memory from that childhood fire incident? They all swam in a chaotic maelstrom in my head. The horror was intensely personal, aimed at my deepest fears, at the claustrophobia of being trapped, of losing control that plagued me. I saw shadowy figures pressed against the glass of the carrel, their faces pale and distorted, their eyes burning with a cold, ancient fury, reflecting the sickly green glow that pulsed from the book. One of them, a man with a stern, angular face, looked eerily like the man from the newspaper clipping, the chapel's long-dead pastor. Another, a young woman, seemed to be weeping silently, her hands pressed against the glass, as if trying to get out. The very air in the archives grew thick and heavy, pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. It felt like the stacks were closing in, trapping me. A sudden, piercing shriek from outside, from deeper within the archives, made me jump. It was Ben's voice, my fellow history major, cut short by a sickening wet tear. Then an abrupt, terrifying silence. On the open page of the book, directly in front of me, the grotesque illustrations began to animate, their lines bleeding, forming new, horrifying images. A man consumed by flames, his face twisted in agony, staring directly out from the page. A single, distinct word began to bleed through the paper, forming on the page as if written in old, dried blood. Sacrifice. Was this a curse? Madness? Or was I unknowingly a part of the horror, perhaps even the perpetrator of the crime? The furious voice roared again, this time from directly inside my own head, vibrating my skull. He locked us in. He made the offering. Your family. His legacy. My blood ran cold. My great-grandfather. He was a local priest, a founder of St. Jude's. His journals, inherited by my family, were filled with cryptic references to purification by fire and new beginnings. He saw an ancient evil in the town, and he believed this ritual would cleanse it. This wasn't just a random haunting. This was a vendetta. The pages of the book began to writhe violently, twisting, straining against the binding with a horrendous screech. The child's lullaby from earlier intensified, blending with the screams, becoming a terrifying, disharmonic choir. There was a ticking clock now. The entity was coming, and I knew, with a sickening certainty, that it was coming for me, for a past I couldn't remember, but that it clearly did. The glass of the carrel began to ripple, distorting my reflection into a dark, gaping maw, impossibly wide, filled with a swirling green light. From within, tendrils of shadow tipped with what looked like dried mud and something else. Something black and rotting reached out. They reached directly for my face, their touch promising a fate worse than death, a direct connection to a 70-year-old crime. As the tendrils closed around my wrists, pulling me towards the gaping maw of the book, a faint whisper echoed from it. Depths, join us, new follower. Burn with us. The book's pages, now glowing with an infernal green light, began to turn on their own, faster and faster, a whirlwind of ancient, forbidden words, as if the ritual was accelerating, pulling me deeper into its inescapable grasp. The immediate horror found a resolution, but it was never peaceful. The shadowy tendrils didn't pull me into the maw. At the absolute last possible second, when their rotting grip tightened around my wrists and the stench of decay filled my lungs. The university's emergency fire alarm shrieked, an ear-splitting wail that ripped through the spectral vision. The green light vanished, the maw receded, and the tendrils snapped back into the book, which slammed shut with a final echoing clang. The overhead lights flickered back on, revealing nothing but scattered dust and my own terrified reflection in the darkened window. Survival felt uneasy and incomplete, tainted by the horrors I witnessed, the crimes uncovered from the library's dark history. There was no true escape. The horror had simply changed form, found a new host. The chaos that followed was overwhelming. Security guards rushed into the archives, alerted by the alarm. Ben, my fellow history major, was found crumpled outside the Carrel, unconscious, a deep, perfectly rectangular bruise forming on his temple. They attributed it to a fall, a concussion in the chaos. They found no physical evidence of the maw or the tendrils, only the faint, lingering metallic tang of decay that quickly faded. Just me, alone, a single chilling audio recording on my phone of the distorted whispers accusing me by name. They thought I was having a breakdown, a delusion from extreme stress and sleep deprivation. They didn't understand. They couldn't. I felt a deep, profound sense of isolation, a terrifying realization that this horror was meant only for me. I tried to go back to my life, but it was impossible. The world looked different. The mundane became terrifying. Every shadow held a possibility. Every faint hum sounded like the resonance of the book. There was no true peace. The doctors cleared me eventually, attributing it to anxiety and a vivid imagination, but the doubt lingered in their eyes, in my eyes. The dreams never came, but the chilling glimpses persisted, even in my waking life. I saw my great-grandfather, a gaunt, grim figure, endlessly stoking a fiery furnace. I heard the faint screams of the lost congregation, over and over, and then the final devastating twist. A revelation that shattered everything I understood about myself, the antagonist or the crime. Days later, back in my dorm, the hum persisted, a low, maddening thrum in my bones. I remembered the words, "You burned us. You always knew." My childhood accident, the fire, the blank spot in my memory. It wasn't an accident. I was a child playing in my great-grandfather's study. He had left his journals open, detailing his descent into fanaticism, his belief that a fire could purify the congregation and bring about a new dawn for his church. He saw an ancient evil in the town, and he believed this ritual would cleanse it. I stumbled upon him, saw the terrible illustrations in the very book I'd found. He was preparing. He pushed me out. The last thing I saw was his face, filled with a zealous, terrifying determination as the flames engulfed the church. That brief amnesia wasn't from the fire. It was the memory being taken. I found it, not a box, but a hidden compartment beneath a loose floorboard in my great-grandfather's old desk, which my family had kept for generations. Inside, not a journal, but a small, tarnished silver locket. It was cold to the touch. When I opened it, it contained not a portrait, but a tiny, faded photograph of a different man, my great-great-uncle, Father Michael, his eyes wide with zeal, holding a copy of the very same book, and beneath it, etched into the silver, a single chilling word: sacrifice. The original pastor. He wasn't trapped. He caused the fire. He was the mastermind, the man in the archives. I felt it then, the true horror, not just a haunting. I wasn't just a witness, I was connected. My own family, through Father Michael, was complicit in the original ritual, the mass murder. My great-great-uncle was the one who performed the ultimate confinement, and the entity I now felt inside me, the hum, it wasn't the tormented spirits. It was Father Michael trying to escape the confines of his own creation, needing a new vessel to continue his horrifying work. I was not the next victim because of a random archive search. I was the next victim because I was a descendant of the one who orchestrated the chapel's eternal damnation. And now, he saw his chance. I was now irrevocably changed, becoming something monstrous myself, carrying Father Michael's dark purpose forward, a new form of torment. My survival is a new, inescapable form of torment. The cycle was not broken, it was merely transferred, and I knew with a chilling certainty that the true nightmare had only just begun. The ancient book, now lying innocently on my desk, seemed to pulse faintly, and a single tiny drop of what looked like dried blood seeped from its spine onto the wood. Close with a powerful message, a final warning that lingers with you long after the screen goes dark. A truth about humanity, tied to Father Michael's dark secret, a truth that now owns me. Some knowledge isn't meant to be found, some truths aren't meant to be shared. I learned that as the ceaseless crackle of phantom flames echoed in my mind forever. The greatest monsters aren't born, they're made. And sometimes they live in the most sacred places, waiting for a lost soul to turn a forbidden page. And sometimes they cling to the innocent, who aren't so innocent after all, those whose bloodlines are tainted by ancient fanaticism and unforgivable crimes. The story feels complete, but profoundly unsafe. The horror isn't truly over, it's merely changed form, found a new victim, or left an indelible mark on the world. My world, my mind. I now live in a constant state of dread. Sleep is a luxury I can barely afford, plagued by vivid, terrifying visions of the burning chapel, of Eleanor Thorne's silent screams. I see her gaunt face pressed against the glass, her eyes wide with unending horror. I hear her frantic whispers, but they're no longer just from the book. They're from everywhere. The true horror lies in the psychological damage, the unraveling of my sanity, and the lingering sense of a world fundamentally broken by the events. The faint, acrid scent of smoke and old incense now follows me everywhere, a low, choking aroma that only I can detect. It's a constant companion, an omnipresent reminder of the impossible, of the library's prison. It clings to my clothes, my skin, a macabre perfume of inherited sin. And sometimes, in the dead of night, when the city is quiet, I hear a faint scratching sound from behind my bedroom wall, a slow, rhythmic scrape like someone trying to get out or in. I know it's still out there. Or maybe I know it's in here, inside me now, waiting for the full ritual to unfold. The old parish records, the cult's original scriptures, the dark passages from the book. I've spent every waking moment trying to find more, haunted by the whispers. Is it a list of names? A record of every soul sacrificed? A key to break the curse? I don't know what it holds, but I know the spirits want new followers, and they want me to find them. I'm just a pawn in a century-old game, a puppet pulled by unseen strings from beyond the grave, forced to complete the ritual while the souls of the damned watch. And sometimes I hear a new whisper from within myself, not my own voice, but a woman's, ancient and victorious, clear as day, right next to my ear. It asks, "Are you ready to preach?" I'm not ready, but I know I don't have a choice. The story ends, but the sermon continues, and I'm stuck right in the middle of it. The library is not just a building, it's a church, and I am its new, unwilling minister, forever bound to its fiery depths. My eyes, wide and unblinking, stare back at me from every reflective surface, a chilling reminder that I am now the library's oldest book. The faint metallic tang of fear never leaves my tongue, a constant reminder of the ritual I'm now forced to complete.